KVRX 91.7 FM, in accordance with federal and FCC regulations, confines the broadcast of indecent material to between the hours of 10 p.m. and 6 a.m. Sensitive listeners and children are advised to tune out during this time.
So, what were we talking about?
We were talking about hackers.
Hackers,
and what defines a hacker?
Yeah, hackers are fun, and hackers like to look at something and figure out everything about how it works. The reason why hackers are so attracted to security systems is because security systems are things that have been designed specifically to never be changed.
It's like saying, it's like telling a kid that he's not allowed to do something.
Right, but
it's a challenge. It's a not telling a kid that you're not allowed to do something. It's just a really great challenge.
It's a puzzle. It's like a lockpicker. When he comes to a lock, he looks for locks that are a little bit better than he is at picking locks, and he tries to figure out that puzzle. Because when he comes to the lock with just a pick, it's just one stick. And you try and make the key pattern that lock wants with just the one thing to touch it with.
Are you also a lock picker?
I've done some. I've made some picks and things.
It's a very fantastic metaphor.
One of my favorite.
And so, are you a hacker too?
Yes.
More or less. I spent a lot of time, I put a lot of energy into math for a long time.
Mm-hmm.
And then it sort of fell by the wayside just because it didn't work out. But I'm really wishing now that I had put the energy that I had put into math into coding and learning how to talk to computers. Because math is beautiful, but I don't know. I wanted to build a website recently, and there were so many things where it was if only I could say this, but alas.
Right, how do you express that? Perhaps.
Yeah, I had to rely on other people's code, which didn't do exactly what I wanted.
Oh, that's kind of the exciting thing when I think about the future is code is being taught to children right now, and people are growing up having programming as a natural way of expressing themselves next to language.
It's a language for talking with computers, which I think are real things.
Mm-hmm.
I saw a Facebook status recently that said something along the lines of coding is going to be the new literacy in the future.
That's right.
Do you think that's...
I think there will be more types of literacy in the future, and that will become more accepting of those different types. And coding has already been one. It's something that allows you to express yourself in an artistic way, as well as let's get something done, let's build a machine. You can use it to make money, you can run a business with coding, you can create things that nobody has ever created before. And the computer will do exactly what you say.
Wow.
I guess learning what you're saying is the...
Yeah, that's the difficult part. That's language.
But, as with many things in the theme of this conversation, the internet provides. And there's, from what I have heard, all kinds of fantastic resources to teach yourself these programming languages on the internet.
Yeah, like Code Academy.
Mm-hmm.
Code Academy has been recommended to me. What was what were we going to listen to?
Chromochord.
This guy Josiah Zayer is... I don't think he was working for NASA when he made this, but he was
part of his PhD studies.
Yeah, it was part of his PhD studies. He was a biohacker. He was getting his PhD in biophysics, and what he did with this was he made a 12-tone instrument to follow the chromatic scale, and he put different concentrations of proteins that were fluorescent into these vials, and I believe he shot a laser through these vials, and depending on how the color of the laser was changed, that was what the music was. Because the light comes in different frequencies, exactly the same way that sound comes in different frequencies. Every color is like a different musical note.
Wow.
And
so he would send some sort of stimuli into the proteins, and they would then fluoresce. And
right.
So I'm looking at a lot of things on YouTube that have chromochords in the title. What is his name so that I can make sure I'm playing
Josiah Zayer. This is good for anyone listening out there in the world to hear. Anyway, he has a really fantastic blog. I mean, he's the kind of scientist that I want to be. He's oh my gosh, he has blue hair and just very well spoken and passionate. His blog really speaks to that that kind of passion and hope for science being something that is for everyone, not just for people with advanced degrees and white lab coats.
Okay, it's hard to pick a video because I can't tell which ones are songs. Okay.
Oh,
I can find one for you later.
Okay, please do.
Yeah.
Okay.
Please do.
I will.
Oh, I can just hand the computer to you. Also, what do you mean when you say biohacker?
Biohacker. Hacking has traditionally been a computer thing, but DNA is a programming language, and DNA is the programming language that all living things use. And when proteins move through the body and respond to different chemicals like sugar at different temperatures, you can physically feel what it's like to be that program. It's almost like the universe is a computer that's running different life forms as programs. And the DNA is a programming language that you can change, you can hack it. There are bacteria that you can recode their DNA to do something that they weren't originally doing.
So what's the difference between biohacking and genetic engineering?
Biohacking means coming at it at an exceptionally creative way, doing it yourself, doing something that most people wouldn't think was possible.
Like the chromochord.
In an exceptionally elegant and cheap way.
Would you say that it is an offshoot of genetic engineering, that they are sort of in the same category or field or practice?
It is, but biohacking is not only about genes, because it's just taking the hacker ethic, it's called, and applying it to the biological type of life. Like, for example, there's a subculture that already exists called the grinders, and grinders are sort of the biopunks. They have a punk aesthetic. That's how they approach the hacking. And one of the projects that was recently funded on a website like Kickstarter is one to help people see in infrared light. Because normally you see it on a spectrum from red to violet. There's a vitamin called vitamin A. That there's two kinds. There's vitamin A1 and vitamin A2. And apparently, if you remove vitamin A1 and take a lot of vitamin A2, then your vision the colors that you can see will actually change. And they're experimenting with this right now.
Who is they?
The grinders.
The grinders. Okay.
Yes.
Okay, that's cool. So yeah, that when I think genetic engineering, I automatically think Monsanto, bees dying, corn, sadness, death.
Right. The fear of technology in hands that are perhaps less creative and less gentle and hopeful than these hackers.
Okay, but when I think biohacking, I think
it's something fun that the individual can do. It's not. Hackers especially don't like things like copyright and patents. They think it's a limit on personal freedom to explore the world and make new things. The essence of human life.
Yeah. Well, it is 4:00 a.m. You are listening to KVRX Austin, and we are going to play one of these chromochords. by Josiah Zahner.
Listen to it first.
All right, auxiliary is on, so
Bioelectrical musical instrument.
does it sound good?
Ooh, yes.
All right, I'm gonna turn off the microphones so we can all listen.
Okay.
All right, so let's explain to us what we're listening to.
It sounds like the instrument, the way it works is through biology, but that the output is sent to a computer and to a MIDI output. That's all. That this isn't at what proteins actually sound like. It's just that he was using proteins as like in a piano. If you touch the key, there's action that has a hammer that strikes a string. In his machine, when you touch the key, there is a biological motion that connects to the frequency that this sounds at.
It's beautiful. It's getting there. It's building. It's nice.
Never been done before.
So explain, at the meetup, he mentioned that it was quantum.
Yeah, he uses quantum effects.
Can you go into that? Can you explain why
yeah,
it's
a little
quantum?
bit. Basically anything having to do with the transmission of light, especially with biological things like proteins, or he said that he was affecting I forget the right word, but the chromatophores. They're these things in cells which are responsible for being colored, and the colors can change depending on how you influence the cell. But he said that he was changing the chromatophores, and there's something called fluorescence. It's a quantum mechanical property, and it means if you put light into this atom, it will send out light at a different color.
What?
It's the way that fluorescent lights work, I think, and every atom has some type of fluorescent property.
That sounds a lot like a prism, where
Yeah.
light goes in and is refracted, changed by the prism, and comes out differently.
Definitely.
I'm curious. Did you go to college? Did you get a major? Or?
Yeah, I studied chemistry, physics, and biotechnology. I got a bachelor's degree back in North Carolina.
Gotcha. Cool. I was just curious.
Okay. But I have a theory too, that there's been some research that is very revealing and hopeful. Not much has been done at all, and I don't think it's something that's being funded very much.
On what? What is this thing?
But there have been studies done on neurons, on spinal cord neurons in rats, I think it was. And they found that these neurons were exceptionally good at transmitting light, similar to the way that fiber optics work.
Cool.
And in like classic quantum mechanical philosophy, there's this guy named Roger Penrose who has the orch-or theory that says that consciousness, the fact that we have an immediate present experience that is unified in all of our senses, are experienced as one whole. Mm-hmm. He says that the entire brain has some sort of shared wave that it's resonating at. And it's a quantum wave, and it has something to do with the fact that there's these really small tubes inside neurons.
Wow.
But anyway, it turns out that the molecule serotonin, which is
happy molecule.
It's a good one.
It's a very well-known molecule. It's one of humanity's most favorite. It's on the outside of the brain the most, the newest part, because the brain is sort of thought to have evolved from the stem to having a reptilian kind of brain to a more and more developed brain until we get to the outside, the really
is the wrinkly
the
gray
really
matter.
ripply beautiful human brain. It's got the front tip is also really good. Apparently there's an area the size of a postage stamp that is responsible, like everything you've ever thought probably happened in that little postage stamp.
Wait, say that again.
There's an area.
There's a postage stamp.
It's about the size of a postage stamp. It's behind your forehead, and it's responsible for all of the like higher functions like reasoning.
And all the rest of that fat grayness is just keeping your body together.
Well, yeah, it's backup. It's obviously what would you be having existential thoughts about if you didn't have that entire brain.
That's sort of the spot where we would like draw the the dot sort of. That's
your third eye.
The third eye. That's a nice coincidence. Coincidence with quotation marks, perhaps. I don't know.
It's a good place to put that dot.
Well, so this theory about the quantum property of consciousness like that, does that work on a similar idea of fluorescence? Is that where?
What I was going to mention was just my personal thought that serotonin is it uses an amino acid called tryptophan.
I've heard of that before.
Tryptophan is the most fluorescent amino acid that there is.
Really?
And it's so fluorescent. That's the way they measure. Like they use a technique to measure protein that's based on how much tryptophan there is essentially in your unknown group of proteins. But serotonin is based on tryptophan, and it happens to be the most fluorescent neurotransmitter. And there's all this like study about neurons conducting light being like fiber optics in some sense. And neurons also have a lot of these chromatophores in them. Nobody knows exactly why. And it's interesting because inside the brain there is no light. So why would you have a structure inside a cell, a neuron, whose seemingly only purpose was to be colored?
Whoa.
But I think this is a very interesting line of research, and if I study neuroscience, I would like to get into that a little bit more.
So in layman's language, the question is, if there is never going to be any light in our brains, why are there structures in our brains made to conduct light?
It's brain fiber optics.
Is that the question?
Right. There's structures in our brain that seem to only have the purpose of being colored, and there are neurons in rats have been studied to conduct light exceptionally well.
Wow, that's beautiful.
And most of a lot of what we experience is like the eyes. The eyes are parts of the brain that grew outside the head to touch the world. Like if you look at the way embryo develops, you can watch as the eyes like start growing out of the brain, and that's why they're so sensitive. That's why they're so. That's why they look the way they do. It's essentially brain matter.
Wow. Okay. Well,
it's beautiful
golly.
and disgusting.
Beautiful and disgusting. And on that note, here are your 4:10 a.m. KVRX things.
You're listening to 91.7 KVRX Austin, Texas. Powered by sheep.
Nuts and Bolts Music is an educational and informational blog and radio program dedicated to demystifying the ways that compositional craft plays out in the musical landscape today, featuring debates about music business and policy, interviews with composers, conversations about privilege, race, and gender in the music industry, forays into popular music history and music theory, as well as reviews and previews of concerts, albums, and music literature. Tune in to Nuts and Bolts Music, Monday nights at 7 p.m. on 91.7 KVRX Austin.